This week in the conversation, I have the privilege to welcome author Miranda Armstadt. She is the author of a brand new, interesting romance novel titled Cut Back to Life. But before we get into the video, I just want to remind everyone that it's important to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you do, don't forget to click the notification bell so that way every time a video is posted, it'll go directly into your portal. So let's get started. Again, my name is Ardain Isma. I am here with author Miranda Armstadt. She's the author of a very impressive romance novel titled Cut Back to Life. But to begin with, I just have to say, Miranda, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Very proud to be here.
Okay, so to get started officially, would you please tell the viewers of CSMS Magazine, who is Miranda Armstadt?
Well, that's a good question. I am a very multi-layered, like a lasagna person. I was born overseas. My dad was in the US State Department. I don't remember any of that.
Okay.
Came back to the United States. My mother got sick, unfortunately, when I was young. So we came back to New York to get her treatment. She did not survive. She died when I was 5.
Oh, unfortunately.
And thank you. And I had a very unusual upbringing in Manhattan.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say I'm typically American. I had a lot of European influence in my life. Definitely growing up in New York, it's obviously very multicultural. So, you know,
tell me.
Yes, a little bit of everything, which I'm very happy I grew up with that. And, you know, went to summer camp in Maine. So I kind of saw some rural America, and we traveled quite a bit as a family too. So, you know, the Caribbean and Europe. And by the time I was 13, I'd seen a lot of the world.
Okay. All right. So I also understand that you spent some time in Hollywood, and you were at some point participated in the Hollywood movie industry.
Yes, I mean, I've done a lot of show business stuff. I actually cut a CD at one point that was mastered at Capitol Records. You know that famous round building? It's like an iconic building that says Capitol on it. So actually mastered my CD there, which was very cool. But I've done show business things. I was a small market news anchor when Reagan was in office. So we don't want to really count back how many years ago that was. But I was a small market news anchor for a CBS affiliate. And I actually was a theater major in college. So I did a ton of repertory theater. When I got out of college, I sang in nightclubs in Manhattan.
Now, let me ask you something here.
Yes.
You're talking about when you were the TV anchor, was that in LA or in New York?
No, that was in mid-America, because the way the TV business worked then, and I think still works now, you have to
Okay.
start very small market.
Mhm.
They actually rate the markets, and I think they rate down to 500, and this was like off.
Okay.
This was like beyond 500. It was a little tiny market in Kansas. It was a town so small, and so I can tell you, because I've traveled all over Europe, I was way more out of my element in this little farming and oil town in Western Kansas than I ever was in a foreign country.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
It's another world. They think people from New York, I'm not making this up, they think New York is like Sodom and Gomorrah out there. It's kind of funny.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. You know what? So let's get officially started into
Yes.
the story. So we're talking about a roaming story. I just want to put it over here so the audience can see it.
Thank you. Fabulous.
I read the story, you know, with a lot of emotion, because I'm a man and a professional, and also there's a lot of humor into it. I love the way that you spiced your story. You know, I like that, because that's what makes someone a great novelist.
Thank you.
The ability to pen a story so with great description, so you make it so easier for a reader to picture the theater where the actions are taking place.
What an amazing compliment. Wow. Can I just write that down? That's bad. Thank you so much.
Now, when I started reading the story now, you know, and I was waiting to see when actually the doctor is going to make his move.
Yeah.
So I have to tell, this is a woman's story, but I just don't want to tell everybody the whole story.
I know, we don't want to give away the whole plot.
No, you really have to read the book to get it. But I can tell you this, it's right in the synopsis also. It's a story between a neurosurgeon and one of his patients. They fall in love. Is that what you call love at first sight? Because the thing is, in the meeting and the limo inside the limousine, let me ask you this, Miranda. You don't tell me if Anna really knows that she's going to meet the doctor in such an emotional way.
I don't think she does. I don't think she does. And the thing you have to remember for context for this, which I'm not giving anything away because this is in the preface to the book, is that I actually had the procedure, spinal fusion, that Anna had before I wrote the book. So I was still kind of reeling myself from all of the aftermath of it. It's almost like a mystical thing, because they go into your spine. Imagine, your spine is sort of like the core of your being, you know what I mean? And so to trust somebody to go in there, and by the way, and this I did translate into the book, I was apparently like the worst case my doctor had ever seen. So I was a bit of a challenge for him. But I think that it actually, I don't know if it's your chakras, I don't know what it is, but it almost like changed me afterwards. And so, and the other thing I started thinking about is, you're really trusting someone with your mobility, your life. And when it comes out okay, it's hard not to see them in this very heroic light. And I think it's a little bit of a trope, I guess, a woman and her doctor, and you adore the doctor. But when I started doing research for the book, I found out that something like 20% of doctors apparently have admitted to having relationships. Yes.
Really?
I'm not saying that statistic because I can't honestly remember now, but it was high. It was like really high. Because it's completely illegal. You are not allowed to have any kind of relationship with your patient. So then I thought, well, what a great, you always want to struggle, right, in a story. And I thought, what a great struggle to put in a story when this is a real thing that doctors really do grapple with. Because let's face it, they're seeing some hot chicks with their clothes half off. They're just men at the end of the day.
And that we're actually on page 33 on the story.
Oh, on page 33.
Yeah, when you mentioned that. The doctor has overridden all reason,
Yes.
risking everything, a
Yes.
professional life,
Yes.
a lavish lifestyle, and everything
Yes.
to go for it.
And you may recall he has, because he's not super young, he's almost 60 at this point.
Yeah.
He has turned down, he's in LA, right? So he's already treated a million, actresses, models. He's turned down a million offers before. So it's not like he's never faced this, and he's always, managed to maintain a professional basis. But something about this woman and this time, he just was like, I don't care anymore.
And the story, let me just say that. And the story, the doctor, at the moment where he was about to really actually act what is being, questioning, but he could not resist anyway. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that when you fall in love, and love is something that can turn someone, even the strongest person, so vulnerable?
100%. I mean, I think you see it throughout history. The strongest men, these men who are, kings and emperors, are literally brought to their knees by a woman, right? They can't say no. And I think women are probably by nature a little more comfortable being vulnerable. But of course, Anna has not been vulnerable in her life because she couldn't afford to be. And the way she was brought up, she very much had, that's something they have in common. She has her screens, he has his screens, and they meet. And I think this is what happens when great love happens, is everybody's stuff kind of falls away. And it's terrifying. We're all terrified to reveal our vulnerable side, men and women. And it is also the most amazing feeling when you do. And I think that's why people take that risk.
Now, Anna, when she gets the message from the doctor and agrees to go on that specific meet, there was a problem, which is she lives with someone.
Yes.
But the way you describe it in the story, as if the main, when he went away, but when he's back from a vacation, yes, everything had already happened between Anna and the doctor, and ultimately she's made a decision not to pursue the relationship with this guy. But however, he's treated as someone who's committed sexual assault.
Yes. Now,
most male readers may probably disagree with that, because since they were living together, they in a relationship, and how many times you try to get something from your spouse and he or she resists, right?
Right.
Ultimately, you find your way into it. So, right. What would you say to these people?
Well, I think it is a gray area legally. I know that, but I think that morally it's not. I mean, I think, the rule is sort of no is no, whether you're married, living with someone. Now, not in Syria, not in countries where women are still treated like chattel, but, I think here in the West, that those days kind of went out the window, hopefully 100 years ago, but legally, I'm pretty sure it is still hard to prove, when it's rape, especially when it is a relationship where you live together. Let's face it, there's nobody there in the room but the two of you. So it's he said, she said, and it is difficult legally. But of course, we're not looking at it that way. We're looking at it inside Anna's head and inside Roger, the man who committed the assault. We're looking at it inside their heads. And so we're kind of seeing how they each react to it, which of course creates, without giving away the plot, a whole series of.
Don't you think it would have been easier if before, Anna succumbs to his power, he overpowered her? So just to say, look, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You and I, it's.
Oh, it would have been easier, but when has real life ever happened easier? When did that ever happen, Ardain? No, okay. I think the world, how many times are people, I don't think people usually set out to cheat or even sometimes know when a relationship is over until it hits them in the face. You know what I'm saying? I've been in those situations anyway.
Okay, so let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah, so well, I know romance stories sometimes, I mean, a love story can take different direction. Sometimes it could be you meet someone and you fall into a relationship, but not necessarily fall in love. So in that case between Anna and the gentleman, the trainer.
The trainer, right?
Yeah. That's what it was basically.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay. There's a little bit of chauvinistic kind of way that you're trying to portray the story, because I'm from the Caribbean and I know what a macho man
Yes.
does.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So do you think that this man somehow, if you want to be the devil advocate, do you think that this man somehow thinks he's being cheated and he feels betrayed?
Oh, yes.
So he has to take some.
He definitely does. He definitely does. But what you have to remember, and of course, as the novel goes on, we find out more about his upbringing and his relationships with women. Right. He is a personal trainer in Hollywood where, the obsession to be thin and fit this is a real thing. Exactly. I'm not making this up. I mean, this is like a serious thing. So a personal trainer has this like power, especially a man over women. And a lot of these women, you think, oh, they're so beautiful. They're like the most insecure people in the world. So he literally could like get a rush from the power he has over all of these women. And now here's this woman who's an A-list movie star who wants to leave him. I mean, I think that would be a big blow indeed to his ego. Now, does he really think he's in love with her? But I think it's more of an ego. I think it's more of an ego thing.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. That's true. But let me ask you something now. I know the move stops right right there in the limo. It was that it is novelistic decision that you made, not to explicitly describe all the details, because you switch to the next chapter, But any reader will get the point, because I get the point. I know exactly what it is, what would be coming next.
Right.
Now, but other romance writers would probably just go further, what would you say? I know you're planning on writing other romance stories. And if I understand, are you writing a historical romance?
Yeah, actually, the next one is not going to be a romance story at all. Not to say that there won't be romance in it, but it will not be romance genre. It's going to be a spy thriller / historical fiction. Okay. So it's going to be quite different. I mean, I think my writing style is my writing style. So hopefully people will, if they like this one, they'll like that one. But it's quite a different venture, the next one that I'm working on, which I'm about 70,000 words into, with probably about another 50 to go.
Wow, that's pretty good. So let's go back now to your historical fiction that you already have 70,000 words down.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Now, is that a story based 19th century kind of story?
No. This is a story based on, as I told you in the original introduction, my dad was U.S. State Department, which is a bit of a euphemism. Pretty much everyone who works in diplomacy is usually involved in intelligence in some way. Did I know this growing up? Absolutely not. I knew nothing. I was given this picture by my father of these bucolic days spent in Yugoslavia with the farmers. I didn't know who Tito was. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Right.
It was not until after my father passed 10 years ago that me and some of my siblings started exploring this. And I actually had a lot of documents that my dad had left me, letters he had sent, his State Department dossier. So I started doing a lot of research. I got a lot of declassified CIA documents from the National Archives. And about 4 billion pages of research later, it's been 18 months, I have a pretty cool plot put together that marries what actually happened with my father with history, with, you know, a spy thriller historical fiction plot. So it's about 80% real and about 20% fictionalized. And it's going to be pretty cool. And it's actually going to span about 100 years, because the reason for that is we're going back and looking at sort of how he got set up to, like, who the heck grows up and says, hey, I'm going to be, you know, a spy, right? But he sort of got set up by all these family things to get into this. And I think it's an interesting backdrop. And then the other side of it is, how does being the child of a spy, myself, how does that affect your upbringing? Because you were literally raised like on stage, like it's like a fake, it's like the whole story you're told is not true. And it's, now that I know a lot more, it makes a lot more sense. But as you know, as a kid, I literally didn't know what my dad did for a living.
Okay, now is that the reason why you decided to go into fiction? You could have done it as just
I could have, yes, you're right. That's an interesting point. I could have. I think it's just such an over the top, larger than life story. And truthfully, I think most of the stuff that's true, people are going to think I made up. I just think it lends itself to fiction because it's like mythical. It's just so big. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's going to be cooler as fiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when do you think that the public I can get my hand on it?
Right, I know. I think I'm actually going to writing full time in a few weeks, which I cannot wait. And I'm hoping that I will have it ready to query within a year, including editing and everything, because of course I'm an editing obsessionist, right? Okay. I am going to try to get it traditionally published, which means I have to find, you know, a top level agent, because I want to get it published by a big house that'll put some, you know, marketing power behind it. And of course, even once you get an agent, they still have to get a deal. So there's a lot of things that are out of my control, but what is in my control is to make it the best story I possibly can. And I am dedicated to doing that.
Okay. Yes. I got you. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
So at some point in the conversation, me and my guests, we start talking about literature, and then we switch into something a little bit more cozy. Okay. But before we get to that coziness, let me ask you something, Miranda. I know you are a perfectionist when it comes to novelistic prose. So who you would consider as your best writer? It doesn't have to be an American. All time.
Probably William Shakespeare.
Really?
Yes. Yes. I mean, you know, they teach us William Shakespeare in high school, and I did not appreciate anything then. I don't think he's really for kids. He's a very sophisticated, satirical, slightly cynical writer. And when you get older and you go, oh my God, that is like the most brilliant thing. You know, one of my favorites is Hell is Empty, All the Devils Are on Earth. I mean, how brilliant. That's like brilliant. That's brilliant.
That's fantastic. Yes. Well, what about a bit more contemporary?
A bit more contemporary. I don't read like super contemporary, but I was a big fan of Sophie's Choice by William Styron, which was of course about the Holocaust. A very not a light book.
I like him so much. Well, Bill Styron, I like him. To me, he's one of the greatest writers.
Brilliant. I mean, that book was so deep and so profound, and you know, I think when a book is great, whether or not you know the history of what it's actually talking about is less important than whether or not it speaks to you on some other level. Beautiful. And I feel like great stories, whether it's Shakespeare or Styron, they do that. You don't have to have been there. You don't have to understand the realities of it for it to somehow resonate with you. And Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing, amazing book, and of course turned into an amazing movie as well.
Okay. So now, what about cuisine?
So this is a very interesting thing because we were raised, obviously, my early years in embassies.
Okay.
Obviously, my parents did a lot of fancy schmancy entertaining.
Okay.
And so when they came back to New York, and because I guess my mother was ill as well, they actually hired a woman who was in the infancy of her career, who went on to become, she's so famous that she has a United States stamp.
Really?
Yes, with James Beard and Julia Child. Her name was Edna Lewis. She passed about 20 years ago.
Right.
Her food was like 4-star Michelin. I'm not saying she was there every day. She came twice a week. It was linen, fine china, sterling. I love eating that way. Very European, and they may do this in the Caribbean too, where we were allowed to have wine when we were like 7 years old. I don't think I drank but a sip of it, but you know how it's like just a different way of thinking over there. And she cooked things that were just, of course you take it for granted when you're a kid. Now I realize I was just raised with like the finest cuisine in the world. I mean, she literally had about 7 best-selling New York Times cookbooks, literally.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
She made a coconut cake from scratch that when I die, I just want to float into the coconut cake. That is my heaven. Just like let me sit in the coconut cake. That coconut cake was like,
okay.
Oh my God.
All right, Miranda, my last question.
Yes.
Is there a lesson you might want to give the world using your pen as a writer?
Oh, wow.
What would it be?
Whew, that's a big question. I don't know if there's like one lesson. I mean, I do think that my vision of the world is a bit eclectic compared to most people just because of my background. And I like to think it gives me an interesting perspective to share with people that hopefully will shake them up a little bit.
Okay. So with that, I'm just going to say it's been such a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.
To receive in the conversation, Miranda Armstadt. But listen, we could talk forever.
Forever, yes.
So interesting. This is the second time that I have in the conversation a romance novelist, and both occasions, it was great. You were great.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're great. I love your questions. Your questions are fabulous.
Okay, thank you. See you later.
Ardain, you're amazing. I will do this with you anytime, any day. You're like awesome. We could have our own talk show.
Thank you. That's great. We'll probably do it. You never know.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. You're awesome. I'll send you everything. Bye.
Bye.